Okay. Hello, hi. My name's Pete Hammond. I'm going to moderate today. And did you all like Les Misérables? Yes. Okay, we can tell. They can hear it on Wilshire Boulevard. Your response to this, which is great. And coming to a movie at 9:30 in the morning. Thanks for coming out here and packing the. Without further ado, let me introduce you first to the Academy Award-winning director of Les Misérables, Tom Hooper. And now I'm going to introduce the SAG-nominated ensemble of the movie you just saw. First of all, we play Marius, Mr. Eddie Redmayne. That's wild. I've done this a while. I've never seen a response like that. Thank you. Amazing. All right, sit down. Sit down. Congratulations to all of you. Tom, this must make you feel awfully good, having worked on this movie, for quite a while now, since the King's Speech. It's a revolutionary movie in a lot of ways, about the live singing and all that was done, and we'll get into that. But why after winning the Academy Award, all that acclaim, everything you went through, what does this mean to you personally? Why did you want to do this movie?
First of all, I want to thank you for that response. We only finished the film a few days ago. To get that kind of response from you is amazing. And thank you to the people who queued at 6 a.m. Pete asked what drove me to do this personally, and there's something at the center of this story that I think is why people are responding in the way they are, which I connected to. A few years ago, my father said to me, I want to master the art of dying well. And I said to my dad, what do you mean by dying well? And he said, when I leave this life, I want to feel like I've left my family, I've set up my family, and I do it in a way that causes you least pain, and I do it in the most graceful way. And I see that as my duty of my final years on this planet. When I went to the musical and I read the book, I realized that the center of this musical is the biggest challenge we all ultimately face, without being too much of a downer. Which is our mortality. And there's something about the way Hugh does that final scene. There's something about that final scene that says it is possible to transcend that you're facing possibly the bleakest moment in a man's life, and he transcends it through love. And he transcends it through love for Cosette, through Marius, and as he's led away and that People's Song starts off, you feel like he's made sense of this moment, and he feels like he's offered us all the hope that we can make sense of that moment in our lives. And in a way, the musical faces the thing that films are never allowed to talk about, but actually offers us some sense of hope that we can make sense of this moment in our lives.
But, you know, it's extraordinary the emotional response that it is getting, you know, and it's almost cathartic for an audience to see it in the theater, and I hope everybody sees it in the theater before they see it on the, you know, on their keychains and iPads. Because there's very few movies that do that, and so it's great. Hugh, we've waited a long time for you to do a movie musical. I mean, you are... So this one came on. The astounding thing to me is you had to audition to it, which everybody had to audition. You know, it's like amazing. But can you talk about this process of getting into this movie?
Yeah, well, I think it's fair to say I was something close to a stalker with this movie, because as you say, Peter, I've been very blessed to have had a career where I've been on the stage all around the world doing musicals, doing theatre. I've had great opportunities in film, but I'd long harboured a desire to do a movie musical. I had dreamt of it for a long time, and when this one came along, it was beyond what I could have dreamt. I mean, Les Mis to me is one of the greatest stories and greatest musicals ever made. What I couldn't predict was that a genius like this man was going to turn up. And by the way, when I met Tom, I literally said, I want to have a meeting, and he was just being polite. I'd met him at the Vanity Fair party. He had an Oscar in his hand, and I saw it. And he's, yeah, okay, yeah, great. Meeting, who's this guy? You know. And I said, mate, I want to audition for you. It's going to be amazing. And he goes, whoa, slow down, fella. I haven't signed on to this thing. I don't know. It's one of a few things I'm looking at. So we did audition. It was a 4-hour audition. Tom came in. I had an hour with the musical director. And I'm not sure if you know this bit, but Annie and I share the same vocal coach in New York, Joan Lader, the genius Joan Lader, and Aaron Tveit as well. I went to hers to have a warm-up. I rode my bike, I walked out of Joan Lader's, and the wheels had been taken off my bike, right? And I'm like, oh shit, I've got an audition in 20 minutes. I've got 25 blocks, right, that's it. Right, here we go. And I'm running. And I ran up the steps of this place somewhere, Soho-y, somewhere like that. I literally ran up, I'm sweating. It was like the first job audition I'd ever been from. I'm like, hi, how are you? Ready? No, I'm here for Jean Valjean. Yeah, gravitas, I've got it, no problem. Give me a second. Luckily I had an hour with the musical director, and then Tom came in. I sung 4 or 5 songs for Tom, and then Tom and I just went to work. It was a workshop, and I've never asked to leave an audition in my life before, but I was like, whoa, Tom, it's 8 o'clock, I've got to put my kids to bed, man, I've really got to go. But what I just wanted to say is that Tom is a genius, as you all know. I don't know if you've seen all his other incredible work, Longford, or the many great films he's made, John Adams, of course The King's Speech we've all seen. But every film he's made has been characterized by incredible courage and incredible understanding and just relentlessness to get to the deepest part of humanity and to move an audience. And what he's done with this is take one of the greatest stories ever written by Victor Hugo, and I think he's revolutionized the movie musical.
And Tom, I know I've talked to you before where you've said you didn't think you'd be able to make this movie, even though you made him do a 4-hour audition. You didn't think you'd be able to make this without Hugh.
When I met Hugh, I was very clear about saying I'm not going to make it unless I can find the actors to do it, because I was determined to sing it live. And to do that, you need actors who can work at that level, but also you need actors who can act through song in the medium of the cinematic close-up and reinvent this great stage musical for the big screen. And the extraordinary thing about that audition is Hugh showed me the film was possible. And in that 4 hours, the film went from being possible to definite, because there was, I realised in that 4 hours, there was no other person on the planet who could play this role apart from Hugh Jackman.
For the record, he did not share this with me at any point.
Look, I'm a director. No, because, you know, it's the combination of not only is an extraordinary singer and an extraordinary actor, and he has the musical theatre and the film pedigree, and he has the strength to play this legendary character. He also carries in him a kind of extraordinary kindness and compassion that I've not really met before. I mean, I don't want to embarrass him, but he's kind of the nicest guy I've ever met. and no one has a bad word to say about him. And, you know, I went through, 14-week shoot where he was up to his chest in freezing cold seawater. He was up a mountain singing and, wearing bare feet and wooden clogs in -5 degrees. He was singing and training every day, and he was always gracious every single moment to the team. He was the leader of the team. So, but the point is that gave him that kind of spiritual quality that Valjean needs, because Valjean within minutes has this transformation where he makes contact with his faith, and he makes contact with this idea of virtue, which then burns within him. And Hugh, the most important thing, Hugh has that he carries that within himself, and that's why I thought he was so great.
And then you put this incredible cast together, right down the line of everybody in this movie. And they have to sing live, which is not done in movie musicals, which is amazing to me. You're doing a musical, you should sing. It's such a natural thing now that we've seen it. Anne Hathaway, unbelievable. I might have mentioned this to you, but I talked to a top executive in town, and he asked me, how did they do that? How did she do that? It must have been one take, manna from heaven, it just happened, it came together. It was several takes, right, that you did this extraordinary, to go to that place. Can you talk about doing this scene and singing that song?
Genius!
You're all really nice. I'm so used to being the underdog. This is different. Thank you all for being so warm. Yay, actors! Yay, big, loving, gushy actors. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think Hugh had like 37 solos, but the rest of us had, usually like one kind of big moment to focus on. Hugh went first with everything. He was the first one at rehearsal. He was the first one. He and Tom went to France and did a pre-shoot, as the aforementioned -5 degree barefoot and wooden clogs up a mountaintop, and he sang the end of the prologue as his first scene, and it was amazing because the crew came back from France and they were lit up, and because they knew that it was going to work, and they had heard Hugh sing, 24 takes that Jean Valjean is nothing, another story must begin. I mean, he hit that note 24 times, and they said he never complained, and I'm just sitting there listening, and I'm just like, noted, okay. This is the company we're keeping in this one, all right. So I had been motivated to obviously prepare. It's quite simply the most extraordinary and unique opportunity I've ever been given as an actor, and I've gotten my fair share of them, and then some. And so I worked very hard on kind of prepping the character, and I realized probably about 2 months before we were gonna shoot I Dreamed a Dream that the only way to respect the language of film was to abandon the language of the stage, and where you can move people with the sheer beauty and of your voice and hit impressive notes, and that on screen, if we were going to honor the human truth of the devastation that Fantine was feeling, it couldn't sound pretty. That was going to be, there's going to be something egotistical about that, like, oh, look at me, look at how I sing, as opposed to look at this poor broken woman. So I just realized that I was gonna have to let the emotion come before absolutely everything. And I checked with Tom, and I pulled him aside one day in rehearsals, and I said, no, listen, I don't want to do this a million times because I want to try to save it and sit on it a little bit, but can I show you what I'm thinking? And I showed it to Tom, and he was very supportive. And then I had to do it again for Alain Boublil and Claude Michel and Cameron McIntosh, and it was terrible. And we all had a version of this experience where you walk into a room and they're all lined up there like an American Idol, and there's a chair right there, and it's just, your heart sinks, and you just think, oh God, no matter how far I go, it's always this feeling.
So worth it. Worth it.
And this is really full back because you know what I'm talking about. And I did it for them, and to my great shock and astonishment, they were totally supportive of me taking this song, which has become, you know, darn near sacred in the world, and letting me put my own spin on it. So then when the day arrived, you know, you just do what you do. You put yourself in the state, you have done all the work, all the preparation you possibly can, and then you just let it go and hope that you take flight. We did the first take, and you know, I think it was a combination of my character was tapping into a rage that she'd never felt, but also, you know, as I'm sure everybody here can relate to, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, especially when it comes to my work. And I really had set this bar for myself that I wanted to like nail it on the first take, and I didn't. And I was just, and then I got angry, and she was angry, and then things just got really hormonal. And, and it was just, and it was this like, we were kind of locked in this death spiral, and we got to the end of the second take, and I didn't take off, and I was so angry. So then we start the third take, and I just stopped halfway through, and I just had to make some changes. And so I asked Roger, an amazing piano player, we hadn't had a lot of time to rehearse it, so I asked him if he wouldn't mind letting Mark Malin, my voice teacher in London, play, because I was used to rehearsing with him, we had earpieces in our ears, so I had one, and I asked him to give me the other one because I was listening to myself too closely, so I jammed them down in as far as I could so I couldn't hear myself at all, and then I just let it rip. And I came up at the end of the take, and I remember having one conscious thought as myself during that take. Everything else was, I was just gone. And the one thought I had was when I was singing that last note, so different now from what it seemed, I realized in the middle of the note that I was belting it, and I had never in my life belted it before. Wow. And I remember thinking, that's probably really good. And then I finished the song, and I was done, and Tom came up to me, and he was like, and this was about, I guess, 20 minutes after we started, and Tom's like, I'm good. And I said, I've been prepping this song for 22 years. We are not done on the fourth take. So then we shot for another 8 hours, but that was the take that wound up in it.
I'm going to embarrass you. I just have to say a little something. Two things. We did 9 weeks of rehearsal, which this man demanded. And I'm saying this because there's a lot of actors here. I came from the theatre, and I was always surprised in film how so many directors were frightened of rehearsing. With this weird idea that something might happen in that rehearsal room and we're not rolling on it, I may never get it again, not understanding that's what actors do. We actually just keep growing and keep going. And I would hate when you mention that. To me, not only is it one of the greatest compliments a filmmaker can make to an actor to hold an uncut close-up for 3 minutes on one of the greatest performances ever given. And I don't want, but I don't want for a second for people to believe it was just something fluky or weird or strange or incredible that happened. It was all of those things. But we all witnessed that for 9 weeks from day one. There was not a day when Andy didn't do something that completely blew us away. So as amazing as that is, and I say that as a compliment to you, but also to you and for any directors in here, it's okay to rehearse. It's okay to really go for it in rehearsal.
Now, Amanda, I have to say, yeah. know, in the stage show, it's sweet and nice, but I think you brought an extra dimension that I have not, and I've seen the show a few times, I have not seen to Cosette, into the film version here. And you're the only real movie musical veteran on the panel here, too. You did Mamma Mia, of course.
No comparison. Unfortunately, I had no confidence from that. But I mean, seriously, like the rehearsal process, you walk into this extraordinary group of people who are so passionate about it, and everybody's giving their A game. So I just have to say it's true. From like day one, I remember practicing your death scene and listening, and Annie started singing, and I was like, what am I doing here? I can't do this. But I'm serious. It was like full on, and it's been the best experience, of course, of my life. And in terms of Cosette, I mean, her character's a bit slighted, I think, in the stage show because there's so much going on. Of course, you don't really get to know her. And the first thing Tom said to me was, "We need to make this girl interesting. We need to care about her. We need to make her worthy of the love that she's given from all these characters, especially the three. I mean, she's like the beacon of hope for everyone, and she needs to earn that. So we didn't have more time, like on film, on camera, we didn't have more time with her. So we just needed to build this relationship up and make it as true as possible. And I also took a lot from you because the first scene that we shot was also the death scene, and the only scene that I'm with you, I mean, the only scene that we have together. So she has this ridiculous amount of like warmth and humanity and this serenity that, just as soon as you come back into the film, it's just like you are in the perfect place, and you are going to bring him to that perfect place. And I realized that is my job as Cosette in the whole film, to try to, I just needed to uphold that, because you want to recognize her as Fantine's daughter in a way as well, so. Yeah.
I just wanted, I thought Amanda brought so much to the part. There is that she's under-acknowledging her contribution, because there's a moment at the end where Valjean has just left her, and in the musical we cut straight from Valjean leaving to Cosette thrilled at her wedding. And you kind of go, God, this woman really has nothing between the ears. That she doesn't, she's just happy that, her family, the one member of her family has inexplicably disappeared. And Amanda was, from the beginning clear that this undermined the intelligence, this undermined the emotional integrity of this character, and actually some of the lyrics in the new scene were redrafted by none other than Amanda Seyfried and Mary Ridley.
We did it together, it was amazing, and it stayed in the film.
I just want to jump in and just one actor to another pay you this compliment, and I don't even know if you're doing it in the film, but because you had so little screen time to communicate so much and little text to support what it is that you were communicating, you do this one thing when you're talking to Jean Valjean, you say, "Please forgive what I say, you are loving and gentle and good, but Papa, dear Papa, in your eyes I'm still like the child who's lost into what," and you say, "No more words." And you do this thing where you breathe and you're like, "Ugh." And it's so clear that you guys have had this conversation so many times, and he's put a brick wall in front of you so many times, and it is the most beautifully realized moment, and an entire life is communicated between the two of you. And I just had to say that. I never told you that, and I just felt like it.
You can tell what a difficult bitch your practices is.
And this guy at the end, Eddie Redmayne. As far as you actually had worked with Tom before, you did Elizabeth I with him, right? So, but you auditioned too.
Yeah, why don't you tell everyone about that experience then?
I worked with Tom about 7 years ago, It was one of my first jobs, and it was an HBO piece called Elizabeth with Helen Mirren. And I was quite a young pup, and in my last audition, I feel like you guys might relate to this, but in my last audition, Tom said, just as I was leaving the door, he was like, Eddie, one last thing, can you ride a horse? To which I responded in affirmative, yes. Cut to 2 weeks later, and we're in Lithuania. There's this huge Elizabethan set, and I'm atop this massive stallion having spurs attached to my feet. There are 40 Lithuanian horse stunt riders behind me, and I'm thinking, at what point do I admit that I may not have told the complete truth? They call action. I'm too embarrassed to say anything. I literally cover my eyes and start hurtling down this street. I almost kill the entirety of the crew. There are rain machines, carriages pulling out the way. Helen Mirren and Jeremy Irons are on top of this huge balcony, and Tom emerges from behind Helen Mirren in this huge sort of Elizabethan dress and shouts on a loudspeaker, "You're a fucking liar!" It basically took 7 years of begging for Tom to re-employ me.
So you can imagine when Eddie and I met and sat down.